Hello everyone, and welcome to This Nintendo Life. My name is NBZ, and we're here at episode 74, and Bali, things have undergone a little bit of a change, although people listening on iTunes may not realise. We put out an announcement earlier last week where we told people that there's a YouTube channel now that you can all go to and subscribe and find videos that we make doing Let's Plays, but also where the podcast will now live on YouTube.
Yeah. Exciting times, you know, a bit of a change up. We're keen to do more content and wanted an outlet to do it on. And obviously, I think we agree that getting the show out on YouTube is an important part of the show.
It is indeed, and we're catering to that audience as that audience would like us to, hopefully. But we are also just doing a bunch of other stuff. So we're doing that Affordable Space Adventures Let's Play. If you remember, we talked about that. Was it last episode?
Yes, I believe it was 73.
Yeah, so we played through that whole game together, but we didn't tell you at the time. We recorded the entire thing, so that was a nice little secret.
We're so fiendish like that, you know, keep it secret.
Obviously. Keep it secret, keep it safe, as they say, as Gandalf says. Yeah, so if you want to watch some of that, that's all over there. At the moment, we don't have a custom URL, so I can't tell you to go to youtube.com/ThisNintendoLife as much as I would like right now. But I will say go to our Twitter account, which is @TNLPodcast, and it should be pinned to the top, right, Bali?
Yeah, I mean, it's pinned to my Twitter account, your Twitter account. It's also pinned to @TNLPodcast, and we tweet all the videos that go out on that channel to @TNLPodcast.
Yeah, so if you're someone who's been left in the dust and don't know what's going on, then there you go. It's there for
Get on Twitter.
Perusal. Yeah, and I should also say to people who are still watching this on my channel, the podcast will still go out on my YouTube channel for the next few episodes, I think, just to help people move over and remind people, hey, by the way, the podcast is moving to a new place. So if you're still on my YouTube channel watching this, go to the description and find the new channel, because that's where it's going to be in the future. So with that all out of the way, Bally, we're here and we're ready to talk about Nintendo. Boy, oh boy, things are definitely going to be happening in September. We're almost there, and I'm sure that there'll be news coming out. But for the moment, we're just going to talk about some stuff. You have the lineup, so what are we going to be getting into?
As usual, we have what we've been playing. Then we're going to get into some listener emails. And for the third segment, we're going to talk about the Nintendo 3DS Direct that was on Thursday.
Yes, indeed. So lots of things to discuss, but first things first, we're going to get into the games. And Bally, you have been rhythming it up on your old 3DS.
I have. This is another game from the Nintendo Humble Bundle.
As we both slowly plow our way through all these titles.
Was that back in spring?
It was a while ago.
It was a while ago.
It did dump like 11 or 12 games on us, so it's taken us a little bit of time to get through them.
And I think between us, we've actually been doing pretty well in terms of getting through them. I've been having a really good time with them so far. So I've been playing Rhythm Thief. This game came out way back in 2012.
Yeah, I remember it being one of the big, there was a time when 3DS was very sparse and there wasn't much coming out, and I remember this being a pretty big release at the time because there was such lack of software going on, and people were pretty positive back then. They thought it's this neat kind of roll up of a Layton style thing mixed with a rhythm game, and I was always interested in it, but I never quite went over the edge. I was waiting for it to hit maybe £5 or something, and then grab it from a game used or something like that. But fortunately enough, we had it digitally through the Humble Bundle, so I don't have to do that anymore.
I should say it was also made by Sega, which is interesting and a bit unusual. But this is the first, I'd say, Japanese rhythm game, you might say. I mean, obviously I've played stuff like Guitar Hero, Rock Band. I think there's rhythm elements of WarioWare.
Donkey Konga, my friend.
Donkey Konga, don't forget Donkey Konga.
Obviously.
Love that game.
Yeah.
But this, other than that lot, this is sort of my first. So like you said, it's a rhythm game with a heavy emphasis on narrative. There's a lot of pointing and clicking. It's almost like a traditional PC adventure game in some ways.
Sure, yeah.
Really slow parts. I really didn't enjoy the pointing and clicking much. I think where this game shines are the cutscenes. There are some incredible sort of anime style cutscenes that are really enjoyable, and obviously I think the rhythm games are the best part of the game. in terms of the cutscenes, they tend to there tends to be a lot more cutscenes and rhythm games falling closer together near the end of the game. Early on in the game, it can feel like there's quite long stretches of pointing and clicking.
Is it very kind of obscure puzzle-based stuff, or is it just very obvious, go here, use this thing? Because
obvious.
Okay,
Very
so it's not
obvious.
really like taxing you, it's just kind of busy work.
Yeah, you're never backtracking beyond like literally one screen, and then there's like a person who's like, oh, hey, you were like, you need to do this one little thing to get past this one thing. I'll help you with that. And then you move back to the other square, and then you press a thing, and it's like, okay, great. And there are puzzles on the map. Some of them are rhythm based. Some of them are just sort of memorization, I guess. Those are okay. They're not amazing. I think that the rhythm games, like I said, are the real sort of meat and potatoes, you might say, of the game. The story starts pretty traditionally, and I should say the whole game is based in Paris, and it's really, I vaguely know the geography of Paris, and they do try to stick to it to some degree, which is really interesting. Like at times you're getting like a tram right out to Versailles and stuff like that, and it does visit locations near Paris, which is cool. And obviously you got the Arc de Triomphe, the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre. There's a lot based around that because that is very closely intertwined with the story.
A lot of famous like landmarks in Paris they can work with.
Yeah,
really,
exactly,
so.
And they really go to all of them. It's really impressive. The whole story is based around art. I'm not going to give away spoilers. The story...
You're like an art thief, right?
Yeah, I mean, it becomes clear why you're stealing and what the reasons are. And it's a pretty good story, I think. The story gets more and more crazy. And there's definitely parts that I don't feel like they tie up as well as I'd like them to. And I know that there's no sequel to this game, which is a bit unusual.
It was a standalone.
So that's a bit strange. There's some really random and unexpectedly dark moments. Really shocking. Like I was like, it's all been really kiddie themed so far, and all of a sudden it was like, wow, okay. I don't want to give away what made it dark, but it was just like, okay, was quite surprised because it had a fairly young person tone.
Sure.
I think the music, which is obviously such a crucial part of these style of rhythm games, is a bit mixed. Some of the classical music is incredible, and it sounds weird me saying that. I'm not a massive classical music fan, to be honest, and I don't know the names of these songs, but there are some real genuine classics on there that everyone will have heard of. That you have to nail.
You get old Beethoven's and friends.
Exactly. So and the rhythm games are so varied. So there's a lot of violin, and the violin mini game is very simple. You're literally dragging your bow left and right, or sliding your stylus along the touchscreen. And I should say that the rhythm games are mixed between. They use all aspects of the DS, other than the mic, thank God. So there are tilt mini games. They're some of the hardest.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. I thought it was just like touchscreen based and button based.
Yeah, mixing rhythm games with the tilting aspect is really tough. And I was actually on a plane going from Edinburgh,
right, you were telling me that, yeah.
Edinburgh to London, and there was a guy next to me, and I'm just sort of like, because obviously this is a narrative-driven game, like the games you're playing are sequential, so you're not going to get onto the next one until you beat the last one. So I was like struggling with this tilting one on a plane, and I thought, well, I don't want to be. I've got it's like an hour on the plane ahead of me. I don't want to just be stuck on this the whole time. So I better beat it. So I just sort of ignored the fact that I looked like an absolute idiot on the plane. And just tilted my way to victory. So yeah, the games are maybe better which are using the buttons, and certainly it's nice that as you near the end of the game, some of the hardest mini games, rhythm games, are button based, which is great. They don't throw like an extraordinarily difficult touch screen rhythm game right on the final boss or something. They stay well clear of that. It doesn't. Those games near the end of the game that involved the stylus, in my view, were considerably easier than the button-based ones. It's like they knew that the buttons were just better for feedback and better for rhythm games in general, and therefore they just made those games harder, which is quite cool. Some of the later rhythm games are really, balls to the wall hard, like really difficult stuff. But none of them took me more than like maybe 3 or 4 attempts. And also, you collect coins throughout the game, and just before playing each rhythm game, you can spend coins to make the game easier in different ways. So like, you can make
that's interesting.
You can make it harder for you to die, like harder for you to miss beats. You can make, I think there's some other power up that gives you like an extra pause or like an extra second. I don't really know how it works. I never used any of them. I managed to beat this, clean.
Hardcore.
Hard to get.
I remember playing the demo for this back in the day, and the idea of your rank being based on how well you did by the end of the rhythm game, whereas as opposed to like tracking your progress throughout the entire thing and then making an assessment at the end as how you did like overall, your grade like goes up and down as you play, and as you get worse it goes down, and as you get better it goes up.
Exactly, but so your grade the entire time. The key thing about it going up and down is it takes maybe 15 to 20 notes, maybe not that many, about 15 or fewer notes to increase from say a C to a B. But you can literally miss maybe 2 or 3 notes or beats and or button presses, as it were, and you will drop straight back down to a lower rank. So it's
quite
really
unforgiving
brutal.
then.
It's very unforgiving, and especially in those later, tougher, faster rhythm games. I was sitting happy at like A+ rank for most of the game, and most of the rhythm game, and then the final sequence of beats comes, and all of a sudden the game's finished, and you have to retry. Go ahead.
So we were talking about Rhythm Heaven when you played a little bit at Gamescom, and you were saying, I was asking you basically about how when Jeff Gerstmann did the quick look, he could close his eyes and be able to still keep on beat and do the minigame without having to rely on the visuals. Would you say that that's a thing you could do with Rhythm Thief, or is it much tougher? Is it more reliant on watching the screen at the same time?
To some degree, I think Rhythm Heaven, from the little bit I played at Gamescom, just was better rhythmically. I think the challenge of playing this game with your eyes closed, I don't think would go as well as Rhythm Heaven.
Okay.
There are a lot of visual cues, and there were some games where it was just really, really awkward timing, and really, I'm not saying off timing, but awkward. Really tough at times that I really struggled with. And some games so each game has like a star rating for how difficult they are, and some of the games were quite low star ratings, just had really awkward rhythms that really mucked me up a bit. So it's a weird one. I think that ultimately the rhythm games are fantastic, but if you're wanting a rhythm game, I think this game has too much story. And then if you're wanting a story game, there's perhaps too many rhythm games. It's a really funny combination.
Basically, you need to be a fan of both like the Lincoln style of narrative and hardcore rhythm stuff.
Precisely.
As well.
You really have to accept what the game's giving you and not get too grumpy when you get a long cutscene or you get a rhythm game just thrown at you out of the blue that's pretty challenging.
Right.
And I think stepping back and taking it all in, it's a really strong package. I really did think the story was intriguing to a degree. I'm not going to give it top marks. It's not, I don't know. It ain't no Xenoblade.
Right.
And I think in terms of the rhythm games, they're great. But I think even from the little bit of Rhythm Heaven, like I said, I played at Gamescom, I think it's maybe doing the rhythm part better. So this is it's a really unique hybrid, and I would highly recommend playing it. I think it is a really good time. There's maybe a bit too much point and click early on. And also, if you've never been to Paris, this is like a really cool little
virtual tour. Almost.
A virtual tour. And obviously Nintendo did that strange thing with the Louvre where they did this deal where you could...
Right, with 3DSs,
3DS to tour around the Louvre. This was around that same time, I want to say.
Yeah, it was, but pretty much. So.
But yeah, cool Excellent. Knowledge of Paris. There's a bit of French history there, and they integrate French history into the plot in a really interesting way that I don't want to give away. But
okay.
MBZ, I look forward to you giving this a go at some point.
Yeah, sure. Before you close out, how's the 3D? Is it a nice...
Sure.
Because this was like at the start of the system, so I imagine they put some attention to it.
I think the 3D is good. I just don't think it's a very good-looking game.
Okay.
Like there are far better looking games. I think the cutscenes look fantastic, but obviously they're not in.
They're an
game, as it
animated
were.
style,
They're
right? So-
that's an animated actual cutscene.
Yeah.
Out of engine, I guess, as it were.
Sure.
Whereas the sort of in-engine rhythm games in 3D, they look good, but in terms of the
Does
3D
that help
depth, but not
with like getting the rhythm on time? Like, is it affecting the gameplay in any way?
Debatable. I
Okay.
don't really want to come down one way or the other.
Alright.
Random cool thing it does is that for the mini games that involve tilting the system, it automatically turns the 3D off, and it tells you that. And that's
Yeah.
that's a pretty cool, bold thing to do that I think is sensible and works.
Totally, yeah. Makes
Overall,
sense.
cool game. Not top marks, but this is definitely a great game worth playing.
I'm going to get around to it at some point. Obviously, with it being a 3DS game, it would be preferable to play it while I'm away somewhere.
On the
or
go.
On trip, yeah. So probably save it for that. I've burned through a lot of the 3DS Humble Bundle games. I think I've only got that and Street Fighter left on that front. Wii U is what I have to concentrate on, because I've got like Swords and Soldiers. I've got like, we ticked off Affordable Space Adventures
We did.
last time. But yeah, there's a couple more Wii U ones there that require my attention. But when I'll get to them, who knows? Because I've got a jillion games to play, and that could not be more proof than this week, where I just had a crisis of conscience and didn't know what to play by. You were shouting at me, you're like,
You
God
have
damn
this
it.
problem every week, MBZ.
No, it's not every week. Come on.
It pretty much is.
Well, it depends on if there's a new game out or if I'm really into something. The problem really stems from I'm playing Earthbound right now, and I really am enjoying doing that, but we can't talk about that because that's going to be a segment when we do our Backlog Club. So basically, most of my time has been spent playing Earthbound, which means I've decided, okay, I've got to find some shorter games to talk about on the podcast this week, and I decided to look at my Steam and scroll through. Also, there's this feature on Backloggery, which is called the Fortune Cookie, where you can literally just click a button and it will randomly serve up a game to you. I tried it a couple times, and I was like, yeah, it is dangerous.
I don't like the game it's giving me.
Sure. I was like, nah, I didn't want to do any of those. But I decided randomly one day, I saw that Shank was installed on my PC. And you're like, what the fuck is Shank? I had to show you a video of it. But basically, if you've heard of Clay, probably their most famous game is Don't Starve, which is available on Wii U. I think it's an edition where you can play co-op on Wii U. But it's a survival game where you go around and chop down trees and shit. It's the standard Minecraft, Rust, DayZ, all these survival games. But they made a game a few years ago called Mark of the Ninja, which was one of the first games I played on Steam. And it is one of my favorite games ever. It is an incredible stealth game because it's a 2D game that allows you to see all the options and gives you all the information you need to enact good stealth. And that's one of my issues with stealth games, is like they never give you enough, which is why that and Metal Gear Solid 5 rank so high for me, despite the fact that I generally don't like stealth. So Clay as a studio, I have a high opinion of because of Mark of the Ninja. And one of the things they do incredibly well is animation. Their character animation and the fluidity through which their characters move and use items and use weaponry against people and kill people. In fact, lots of kill animations in Mark of the Ninja are incredibly visceral and satisfying to watch. That just stands out to me more than anything else. Like if I see a game with good animation, as I said in our Gamescom episode, that will catch my eye and get me to go, yeah, I'm going to play this. So Shank is one of their older games, and it's essentially a side-scrolling beat-em-up where you play this character who has a variety of weapons at his disposal. He has range stuff with guns. He has like these daggers that are up for good close-up stuff, and he has like a heavy melee attack, which you start with a chainsaw and you kind of unlock different things as you go along. And you can chain these together like really easily, just like a bit of button bashing here and there. I played it on normal, and the game said like if you want to enjoy the story and just not have a horrible time, do this. And normal seemed to offer a decent challenge, but it wasn't overly like murdering me, because I think a lot of the problem I have with beat 'em ups is I'm not great at them. You remember the Jackie Chan game we played on GBA.
I love that game.
It's a great game, but I don't think either of us beat it. It was really challenging.
It was hard, yeah.
It was, and I think that's a problem for me with beat 'em ups is I'm not amazing at them, and so learning combos and moves and stuff is similar to fighting games and similar to character action games, like I talked about with Metal Gear last week. But that's the thing, is that this game offers up a really great challenge while still allowing you to look cool and do great stuff. So that was very satisfying. But the main loop is just going from left to right and just murdering people. And it becomes like kind of crowd control thing where you have to be using the range to get people away from you. There are these big bruiser enemies who kind of have a rush through. So you have a dodge roll that you need to get past them with. You can pick up items and throw them at people. Like there's always like health pickups on the way. But the real thing that strikes me is just how fluid the animation is and how satisfying it looks. And to a degree, like it's a similar thing to what Metal Gear Rising did for me when I played that, is it just looks so nice and it's so satisfying to pull off moves and kill people that kind of pushes me through, despite the gameplay being relatively repetitive, you know? Like I can get over the fact that it's not necessarily doing anything different, mainly because it's a very short game, but also because it just has a style to it, you know? I think style is very important in these kind of games because they run the risk of getting overly repetitive and boring. And I think maybe you're not the hugest fan of beat-em-ups, are you, Bally?
Not particularly. I've really not played many, and at the same time, they don't really appeal to me. I definitely do want to try sort of the top ones, and I mean, character action is slightly different to beat 'em up, obviously to do with perspective.
Sure.
Importantly, I did like Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
But when was this game out?
I can't remember. I think like 2009 or something, maybe. It kind of shows, to be honest, because you look at the background artwork and it really feels like that was created with the PS3 and Xbox 360 in mind.
Sure.
Whereas the character models are much higher resolution. So you have this weird mismatch where all the enemies and your character look really sharp, and then the backgrounds are kind of blurry, and it gets awkward when there are platforming segments, which there are a few of. They're not difficult, they just kind of break up the action. But like there are these moments where you're climbing up a pipe with your hands, and it really doesn't look like you're grabbing anything. It looks really, it kind of looks like a student project almost, where like the hands are just like moving through the air and you can kind of see the background behind, but there's no sense of depth to it. And it just looks like you're very static. It's a weird thing, to be honest. I think the reason for that was the resolution of the characters and enemies on the console versions was lower, so it matched up more back then. So
what's the plot like, or is this more all about the beating of the upping?
I mean, it actually has a relatively interesting story if you pay attention to it. I was listening to podcasts a lot while playing this game because that's the kind of thing that it's built for. I think like most of the levels are just like go through, smash people, don't really pay much attention. But they have really good animated cutscenes. As I said, Clay known for their animation being excellent, and they did a good job on those as well. It kind of follows a weird Kill Bill storyline in some senses, where your beloved has been murdered by this gang member who you used to be a part of, and you're kind of going through beating up like the leaders and the people who are part of it as you go along. So it does have that sense of like you're, progressing through these ranks and finally getting to the big guy at the end, which I think is a really cool narrative structure. That's one of the reasons I really like Kill Bill, because it's kind of, she's going through this hit list of like slowly taking people out and doing it in these more ridiculous ways. And the boss fights are definitely more interesting because they have gimmicks to them, such as one of them, you basically, in order to really do a lot of damage, you need to trigger certain events. So one of them is like there's these meat kind of skewers that are hanging from the ceiling, and if you shoot the meat skewer with your gun, they kind of drop down, which will then allow the boss, when he tries to swing his massive chain at you, the chain gets stuck on the pig skewer, and so you basically do a slow motion jump on top of him and take out a bunch of health in one stroke. So like they could have just gone with the option of they just have patterns and you just need to hit them a lot, but I appreciate that they added these different like elements to make you figure out them in a more puzzle style way, which was cool. And It's definitely like not a game that is going to rank like super high on my favorite games of all time, but I just think it's really solid. It just feels great to play, and chaining moves together feels just fluid and solid. And yeah, Shank is great. I actually have the second game on Steam as well, so I've been thinking about just going through that on another day.
I think there's always a valuable place for a top tier, B tier game.
Totally.
There's so many out there, and obviously the media just focus so many on that top tier, but ultimately that B tier, that's sort of the bedrock of where gaming is going and where it's been, and it's important.
Yeah, totally. I always appreciate having something that's just like a really solid thing that I enjoy. So that was Shank, and the other thing I played was Speedrunners, which I basically picked up as a result of...
Which is a great name for a game, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Speedrunners.
Yeah. I had it on Steam for a long time. It's one of those that's just been sitting there, and I've known about it for ages. I've seen some people play it on Twitch, and I never really understood what the game was about. I just seen people play it. And so Ian Hink from Easy Allies uploaded his weekly show, Easy Update, and this week he was playing Speedrunners with a couple of his friends, and I watched it for about 5 minutes, and I was like, man, this is a really cool concept. I wonder if this game has a single player, because I knew that it had released and it was a multiplayer-only game. And so I went on to howlongtobeat.com, which we always go to see how long games are, so that we can say, oh, this is a short game, I can play it for the podcast and things like that. It's an industry secret, Bally. We're letting people know. But I went and checked, and apparently it did have a single player. So I was like, okay, well, it looks like a couple hours, I can knock this out. And it is such an incredibly fun game that I think I would have a rollicking good time playing with you. The basic...
In like a multiplayer race format.
It's basically Mario Kart, but a platformer is how I would pitch it. There are like maybe 20 different maps, and each of them is kind of cylindrical in the sense that you start down on kind of a lower area, and then you go all the way through, have some verticality, go up, and then go through a higher plane, and then fall down an area and go. But obviously they have different things here and there, different obstacles about the place, and you have a variety of things you can do. So you can slide under certain blocks, you can jump, you can double jump, you can wall jump, you have a grappling hook which allows you to attach to certain places and get more speed. But the crux of it is you're picking up items, and the screen is slowly shrinking as the match goes on. And the objective, obviously, is to just be out in front as far as possible. And so if you're further behind on the screen and you get caught up in something or trip over an obstacle, you might just explode at the end of the screen and be out of the race. So you start with 4 players, and you essentially go until there's one person left. And it gets so intense, and really, it's all about knowing the maps, because every time on the map, the obstacles will be the same. So the same boxes will be there. The same area to slide under will be there. So if you know it well, you're going to do much better than someone who's jumping in for the first time. But at the same time, like, there are these items that can help level the playing field. And I think the most bullshit one, which kind of reminds me of the blue shell, but it's not quite that dickish, is this grapple hook, which allows you to grab someone who's in front of you, kill all of their momentum, and you just race ahead with the momentum that they gained. So it's really good when the screen is like almost expanded, or what's the opposite of expanded? Decreased?
Shrinking? Minimizing?
Shrunk? Yeah, shrunk to its smallest size. And when you do that and pull it off, like, I was having so much fun watching them play it, but then playing the single player, the satisfying moments of doing that is just like, holy shit. It was a really thrilling thing, even playing against the computer, just learning it, getting the ropes and understanding, like, okay, I need to do this here and this there. And it was just, I want to play this more, but I need some people to play it with, so that's the problem.
So you really don't have to be out in front, you just have to survive, if that's the main part, right?
Really, yeah, like, you can get lucky and get a good item and then just say fuck you at the end and then screw over your opponent.
But I noticed from the part that I watched on YouTube that basically by being in the lead and boosting the stage forward is basically a massive advantage against your opponents, because it dictates the shaping of the screen almost.
It does. Basically, you cannot be killed if you're, like, obviously the screen is shrinking, but the screen will always keep moving with the first person in the lead.
Yeah, it's like shrinking around the leader.
Right, basically.
Yeah.
So as a leader, you will never be caught by the screen. You can just
see.
go as fast as you want. But the problem is, while the screen shrinks, so does your field of view. So previously, where you could see a box of crates coming, now you really have to know the stage to know when they're coming up, because otherwise you'll trip and maybe screw yourself. So it really feels like something that I would want to have a lot of people playing at once. It's 4-player, I think, maximum. But man, that just really came out of the blue for me, and I was like, man, this is really fun. And I really enjoyed it.
I pointed out it's got a number of similar elements to Rumbo, which was another game we got in the Nintendo Humble Bundle, and that's definitely a game that we can play online together, so we should definitely give that a go.
Yeah, the thing with Rumbo is people say that it's far better with like way more people.
So its unique selling point isn't so much necessarily the racing; it's the fact that it's racing with so many people. So
it's more of the chaos.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I have played it 2-player. It's still pretty good fun. But you're right; it's more aimed at 8-player. But I mean, maybe we could do a stream. Get some.
We could do, yeah, potentially. Cool. So anyway, so a couple of weird, like, obscure games there to throw out, because I'm playing Earthbound. Really, that's the main thing I'm playing.
We love it. We love an obscure game.
Yeah, I think it's good to expose people to these things, because otherwise they would never hear of them, and they'd be just like, okay, I'm just going to play the same thing again. I don't know. I always think it's good to expand your horizons and try different stuff. So, so that's what I've done this week. And that's pretty much it. Obviously, I continue with my Fire Emblem playthrough. I have like half of the children in Revelation. Just did a couple of chapters tonight. Always a great, relaxing background thing for me. Just love that game. Yeah, Bally, you better hurry up with Earthbound so we can talk about it, because I'm very close to the end.
I know. I'm feeling the pressure. I need to plow on.
Totally.
I am loving it too, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm loving it.
We should probably also just mention, hey, you should send us emails for Earthbound. We have had a couple already, and we would like some more. So if you want to discuss Earthbound with us on our Backlog Club feature, which should be in the next few episodes, depending on how Bally goes, do that, because we would love to hear from you. Bally, where can they send those?
Please send your emails to thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That's thisnintendolife@gmail.com. We love to hear all your thoughts.
Yep, so get Earthbound in, sending those in, and we will see you after the break with some of those emails that you already sent to that email address. So don't go anywhere. We shall be right back.
And we're back. It's time for emails. This is the second part of the show. Before I get into those emails, I think it's worthwhile informing everyone of our email address, which is, of course, thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That is thisnintendolife@gmail.com. Our first email this week is from Cal W, who's from the internet. Dear MBZ and Bally. MBZ, would you consider doing an LP that features dual commentary with Bally?
Well, interesting you should ask, Cal. We got this email in a little while ago, and we thought we would hold it for this very moment, because as part of our new YouTube channel launch, we are also doing a Let's Play. So if you didn't hear the announcement video and all that, we are doing all this other video content alongside putting the podcast on the YouTube channel. And the first Let's Play we're doing is Affordable Space Adventures, which we talked about last week in our What We've Been Playing segment.
Yes. First part of the show, maybe the second by now, we don't know yet, is out now. Check that out on our YouTube channel. It was good fun, and yeah, like you said, we talked all about that game last time on the show. Our next email this week is from Chris, who's from Jacksonville, Florida. So Chris emailed about how he felt about FE Fates, and he basically was quite hyped about the game, but didn't feel that the game lived up to the hype. And he asked a follow-up question along those lines, asking us, what game have you overhyped prior to release and ended up being disappointed with? Conversely, what game did you have low expectations for but ended up absolutely loving? And then he says, for the latter, he enjoys Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE. He knew going in that it was going to be a guilty pleasure, but above all else, he ended up falling in love with the gameplay and the aesthetics, as well as the characters and their designs. And he says, thank you for keeping up the awesome work.
Okay, so I think the obvious one for me right off the bat is to, get on his bandwagon and say, well, Birthright specifically for Fire Emblem Fates was a big one where I was just really excited for Fates to come out. Obviously, we had like the 2-month delay and had to wait forever, and people were talking like amazing things about it, and people were very excited. And I got Birthright, and I was just really crushingly disappointed by a lot of the elements there. Obviously, Conquest fixed a lot of my problems, and I'm just enjoying kind of bumbling along with Revelation right now. But I do have to say that, like, for a game that I was so excited about, for the first entry in it to be such a slap in the face, really, was a real bummer. And it's maybe taught me to, not necessarily be overexcited. Usually, I'm not very overhyped about games to begin with. I think maybe Zelda is the one right now with Breath of the Wild that is I have high expectations for, but I also want to like temper those to some degree so that I don't go overboard and think like it's disappointing by the time it comes out. I think it's just safer to not, tap into hype culture because it's a dangerous thing,
Yeah, definitely. I've dragged this game I'm about to say over the coals a number of times, but it's got to be Woolly World. I mean, I really enjoyed Yoshi's Island. I played it way back in 2014, I think. Absolutely loved that game. I was really excited for some, really good-looking 2D platforming with Yoshi, and Woolly World just fell flat. It felt like a chore. I've been over this a number of times. I don't feel like it did enough special to make it enjoyable, and it just doesn't feel like a very addictive game to play at all. It was very dull, to be honest.
It was very plodding.
Yes.
The pacing was, I think, one of the big things that you took away was, like, not your favorite thing. Just long levels that went on forever, and
yeah,
I liked Woolly World a lot. I think it's a good game, but I definitely feel you with the burnout. Like, it certainly just it went on too long. It just outstayed its welcome, I think. Which was...
And it's not even the longest game is the thing. It's kind of, I think it's like 8-9 hours. Maybe.
I mean, yeah, I spent like 20 with it because I was 100%ing like the first 3 worlds or so. I was really enjoying it. Like, that was the thing. I really did enjoy the first 3-4 worlds of that game, and it was the sort of thing where it came along and just started repeating things that I'd seen before and just not doing much new to stand out. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I just think boss design when it comes to the Mario series generally is just poor and uninteresting, and there's a lot of recycling going on, so there's not really that much excitement in terms of, hey, there's this new thing you're going up against, figure it out, because it's a lot of like, hey, it's the same thing you've seen before in like 3 other games and also in this game as well, and just do the same thing, so.
MBZ, what is a game that has flipped the other way?
So I think the obvious one, which I keep going back to, is Codename Steam, where everyone was like, this game sucks ass. And I was like, okay, well, I'll pick it up for 10 quid. And I picked it up for 10 quid. I'm like, you people are wrong. This game's fucking amazing. I was definitely very tempered with my expectations going into that game. And I came out the other side being like, this is a revolutionary thing for me personally. Obviously there are other games like it, such as Valkyria Chronicles, which I still have to get to at some point, but I think that's just the one that most of all sticks out in my brain of yeah, that was a real nice surprise that I didn't expect. There's probably another one I can think of, but Bally, what do you have one?
I've got a couple. One that I've talked about a number of times as well is Metroid Prime. I really didn't have any experience of sort of that style of game. I'd never really played a first-person game, let alone, you know, a first-person game with shooting elements. And I've said it before, but I just fell in love with that game. It's one of my favorite games of all time now. It's a truly, truly great game. Another game that I didn't know what to expect, but was almost so curious about the game that I just had to pick it up, was Star Fox Zero earlier this year.
Right, yeah.
Similar to Codename Steam, the media were relatively split. It had its fans, but a lot of people were saying it's horrible. Don't get it. Don't do this. And I was like, you know what? Like Guillaume from RFN, and there were another couple others. They were liking it, and I was like, "What? Why do they like it, and all these other people don't like it?" And I was like, "I've got to pick this up." And now I've not invested enough time into it, to be quite frank. I got really bogged down with other games when it came out, so there's more of that game I'd love to play before the end of the year. But I really, really like it. I really prefer it to Star Fox 64. I think it does more in terms of changing the formula and creating an exciting gaming experience than that game does. I just think it really got dragged. I've said the phrase already, dragged across the coals, but the media just really hated Star Fox Zero, and I said this at the time, but I think people can sometimes be very adverse to change, and that is definitely what they did with that series. It's a real change, but it's something that I really liked.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate thing is you had that game digitally, so you can't really lend it to me. I'm not really willing to go out there. Actually, funnily enough, I think Star Fox 64 is a big one where I wasn't necessarily hyped for it at all, but I was like, this is a classic game. I'm going to go into this.
Everyone else loves it.
Yeah, everyone else loves it. You know, it is like adored by people, and I'm going to go into this and I'll be like, yeah, I'll probably think what everyone thinks. And I fucking despise Star Fox 64. I think it's a trash pile. Like, I really don't like that game whatsoever. It just doesn't tap into the things that I enjoy. It's a flying sim, not sim, but you know, I'm bad at doing 3D space when you're in a plane, and I just found that out and discovered that it was not my style, and I don't think I ever will feel that way. So, yeah, I think that's
bring on the virtual reality spaceship flyers.
Yeah, and I think another one in terms of me not necessarily expecting that much, but really enjoying, and obviously the media not being that hot on, was the 2D Batman game from Armature, which is Arkham Origins Blackgate, which I played on Vita. And that was actually, I think that was the first game I ever talked about on the podcast.
Yeah, I believe it was.
And I love that game. I think it's a fantastic Metroidvania. I think it takes a lot of elements from the mainline Arkham series and translates them into 2D. Obviously, the complaint I had about that game was the map system being really hard to navigate. But aside from that, it's just super well designed. It's very much fits the Batman aesthetic, and I just didn't understand why more people didn't enjoy it. I just thought it was a really good handheld version of those Arkham games, so that one definitely comes to mind for that opposite end of the spectrum.
Our next email is from Cerbus, who's also from the internet. Hi, MBZ and Bally. I just wanted to send in something I've been thinking about in light of the new NX leaks that I'd be interested to hear your take on. If we assume that the NX is portable and docks to a TV for home console gaming, then it is possible that Nintendo will lose a huge portion of portable sales from households with two gamers. My brother and I each had GBA DS and then 3DS as we were growing up, so we could play together. It seems with the NX that we may only need to get one between us to play together. If this is the case, surely this will dampen NX sales significantly. Cheers and keep up the amazing work. P.S. Top-notch job on the Fire Emblem video, MBZ. One of my favourite videos of yours, up there with that time you read the Fire Emblem Awakening Miiverse posts. And then PPS. Also can't wait for Earthbound Backlog Club. I've got something special planned for you boys.
Well, that's very intriguing, Acerbus. I'm very interested to see what you're going to send regarding Earthbound. Bally and I are obviously both going through that game and hope to talk about it soon. But let's address his point here, which I think is a very valid one when you think about siblings and having multiple handhelds. This was certainly a thing when I was younger. I mean, my sister was the first one to get a Game Boy in my family, weirdly enough, and she ended up...
It's a great stat, that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. She ended up never really using it. and I was the one who kind of took it over, but it does like pose that question of traditionally handheld systems from Nintendo have been the sort of thing where if you have kids, you're generally going to have to get one for each of them, because otherwise they're going to complain and shout at each other in the car about who gets to play it, right? And with the NX and the assertion that it may be a more expensive piece of kit that is handheld and that does dock, what does that do for people wanting to have it as kind of multiple siblings? Is it going to be too expensive? Is it going to be a big issue when coming home? Or is, as a service asserts, the case where it just becomes one object that they can share between them and play at home together? How do you feel about how Nintendo will address this in terms of the marketing and the messaging?
It's a really interesting point that I think so few people on the internet have actually had to think about. I don't really know, to be honest. I think it's a very valid point. So I'm an only child. I never had this sort of thing growing up. So a game system was mine only. No one else's ever. It was mine. So I don't know. Obviously, loads of households, they buy multiple Game Boy Advances, DSs, 3DSs, like you said, for different siblings. I don't know what Nintendo do about this. I mean, if the NX comes in two parts, where you can buy one bundle that has the sort of home console part that also comes with the handheld, and then you have a separate package that only sells the handheld, like, is it possible that households could buy multiple handhelds in one home part, like
right, so that you can dock multiple ones to the station? Yeah, I assume that would be possible. It would also mean that they, of course, and we know they're going to do this, but they have to shape up their account system, because then you'll have the situation of, I need to have my games on this as well as on that one, and it will actually, to be honest, if they get their account system in order and it becomes like, iPad, iPhone, where you can have multiple apps across these multiple devices, then you could be in a situation where you're no longer paying for two copies of the same game and having two kids with, like, one has Omega Ruby, one has Alpha Sapphire, that sort of thing. They both have a copy of the game that is shared between the system. Obviously, that becomes awkward when maybe they're both playing at the same time, if that's even possible. And then, obviously, that's concerns about piracy and everything. But as long as it is within the account itself, that could actually alleviate an issue that parents have been having with, hey, I have to buy this game twice,
Part of me thinks that Nintendo try to ignore the problem. And what I mean by that is they say, right, it's similar to a gamepad tied to a Wii U. Like, they just say, right, I'm sorry, but that each handheld can only be tied to one home console. If you want multiple handhelds that experience a home console experience, then you have to buy two home consoles. And
oh god, that sounds like such a Nintendo thing to do, and yet
that's
the
why I
worst
say
thing
it
to do.
exactly. Like, I think they say, imagine, I think they have the possibility to even make more money out of that, potentially. I mean, some parents will obviously say, no, we're only getting one for the two of you, but I'm sure there are other parents who would say, actually, both of you want the same experience, so why don't we just buy two? And then, I don't know enough about households and siblings and these things these days, but who's got multiple TVs to do that with and who's not? So it's a bit messy, to be honest, and I just think that might be an easy way out for Nintendo.
It might be. You look at the way the Wii U does it, and you have an account system there. I don't know for sure that when you log into an account, you have access to the games that are just downloaded on that system, or whether they are tied to the other user profile.
I believe it's like the 3DS. It's tied to that 3DS. Likewise, your Wii U games you download are tied to your Wii U.
Right, but in terms of the accounts themselves, that's what I'm not sure. Is if you're say I have bought an eShop game on my account, and say my sister logs in on her account or whatever, if she had one, and tries to play that game that I had downloaded, would it let you do that? And I think you can. So in that case, I think this is the same on PS4, where you can, you have access to your friend's account and you can download a game and still play it with your account active, right? So there's no issue there, because it's one singular system that stays at home. And I think getting around that problem is when you have the multiple handhelds, but they're both docking to the same home system, right? That's where it becomes an issue, where it's okay, but what if we have another person here who is not necessarily tied to this family or whatever, but wants to get in on it and can download things directly from that home base, like, then you have the issue of piracy and whether that's a problem. Obviously, people kind of do that anyway with account systems and sharing account systems, but you'd have to figure out a way to make it so that it wouldn't be easily exploitable and yet still convenient for the end user, which is hard to figure out, right? Like, it just seems like a bit of a problem. And I don't know if it will be a big deal. But in terms of a service's question about whether it will dampen NX sales, I don't know that that will necessarily be the case. I think that marketing it from a handheld perspective will still make people want to pick one up for themselves as an individual. And I think kids will still say, hey, mom, hey, dad, I want one of those for myself, because I don't want, us having to share and be a problem. So, yeah, I don't think it will dampen sales. I just think that they need to figure out a smarter way of allowing people to use multiple systems in one household.
It's complicated, but I can see Nintendo ballsing this up
Oh,
massively.
yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I have no confidence. I have zero confidence that they will figure this out at all.
I could even see the NX reveal being incredibly positive in almost every aspect, and then this is the one thing that they muck up. Like, I can see that happening.
Yeah, totally. No.
So our final email this week is from Jai, who's from Las Vegas, Nevada. Hello again, MBZ and Bally. For the past year now, I've been collecting retro video games for systems like the NES, the SNES, and the N64. Being in the collecting scene, my first priority was to pick up games that I played from my childhood. Games like Pokemon Stadium 2, Yoshi's Island, and Super Mario. Games everyone has played, I know, but iconic for being great. I've expanded my horizons in terms of collecting and branched out to Sega consoles like the Genesis, Mega Drive, the Sega CD, and also the Dreamcast, systems which I never played in my childhood. And to go into a little more obscure systems, I even picked up a TurboGrafx 16. Do you even know what that is? By doing so, I've come across many, many games that are great on each system. My question is, have either of you considered exploring more retro games besides Nintendo? And if so, which consoles games are you interested in playing for the first time? Thanks for answering my question. Here's to more awesome podcast episodes. P.S. I've attached some photos to show you the various consoles I've acquired over the year.
Well, this is a really interesting one, I think, because, Bally, you and I, when we're going back into the history of old games, on this podcast specifically, it's very Nintendo-focused, because obviously it's a Nintendo podcast, and we want to... these are the franchises we're most interested in, and we want to kind of gain knowledge about them and play them and give our thoughts as we, kind of go back through history. But, of course, there are so many other old consoles and old... companies out there who have been around and been making games for a long time. Where do you think you would go first? Would you go down the Sega route, down the Sony route? Is there anything else more obscure that you've ever been interested in? What's a system that you would like to tap at some point?
Mine is going to be quite boring, and by that I mean I'd just love to delve deep into the Sony era of PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. So those are both... two incredibly popular consoles in my lifetime that I know quite a lot about, but have never owned either of those systems and experienced those games. And there's obviously tons of classic games from both of those systems that I've just never experienced for myself. And obviously the fact that they're going back to the late 90s and the noughties also makes those systems a bit easier to maybe pick up and try if I ever wanted to try that. But like you said about going back to Nintendo games, that is sort of 100% my priority for the coming future. So these sort of ideas would happen sort of well down the line. They're nothing I'd be tempted to do in the near future.
Totally, yeah, I see where you're coming from there. And I think it's also the case with you having access to a PlayStation 4 now, probably via virtual means gives you a better access to that back catalogue. Whereas if you were to tap the well of, I don't know, some, like you mentioned, TurboGrafx 16, which funnily enough, there are some TurboGrafx 16 games which just came out on
the Wii U,
Wii U, but not obviously like loads of them, but it would be way more difficult for you to go on eBay and find an old system and hook it up and make sure it works with a TV that's modern and all that stuff. I think the best way to experience retro games these days is to wait for them to be digitally re-released and I think that's where you can get the most out of them. You have like modern conveniences with save states, and on PlayStation, the PlayStation 2 games they've been releasing have had trophy support, so people who like doing that and collecting those, it's an option for people. So that makes a lot of sense. Is there any PlayStation game in particular that you can think of that you're like, I want to try that, I want to go back and try that series?
Shadow of the Colossus on PlayStation 2
Oh,
would
PlayStation 2,
be,
okay, sure.
high on my list. In terms of PlayStation 1, a lot of sort of the old Gran Turismo and that sort of thing, and even Spyro and Crash, they're the two obvious sort of
The big
Nintendo-esque ones, you might say. Pardon?
The mascots.
The two mascots, exactly.
Yeah.
So games like that. There's a few others, but I'd have to have a think about it.
Castlevania Symphony of the Night, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
That's yeah, no. But
It's not one
no.
that comes to your brain, but it's one that I will tell you need to play that, Valley.
I mean, I need to experience Castlevania on the Nintendo system, let alone sort of delve back onto PlayStation first. But no, I can see where you're coming from.
Totally. For me, I would say that I think Sega is something that I've always been passingly interested in, but not enough to like really dive in and figure out more about it. I just don't know enough. And the thing is, the weird thing about Sega is the systems, the consoles were named differently in the UK than they were in the US. And I haven't, like, this is probably my biggest blank spot, is like, generally I don't know what Sega consoles were called here versus the US and which ones came after which other ones. It's a gap in my knowledge I want to fix at some point and like learn and be like, okay, so this is the order, this is what they were called over there, this is what they're called over here, these are the games that came out. But I think the one that really piques my interest the most is the Dreamcast, because the Dreamcast is a system that came out contemporaneously with when I was still playing games, but it was at a point when Sega had gone super downhill, like they were pretty much out of the console business. The Dreamcast is what killed them, basically, and sent them just into doing software alone. And it apparently, from everyone who talks about it, is a classic system with incredible games. I think it's a lot of the way that people talk about the Wii U, where it has a short lifespan, but it burns bright, and it has some real high points. So games like the original Soul Calibur on there,
yeah.
Stuff like the original Sonic Adventure, which I played Adventure 2 on GameCube, but people always talk about that game as being a big deal. RPGs like Skies of Arcadia, things like that. Shenmue, which is a series that has got a lot of spotlight recently with the Kickstarter for Shenmue 3. Like Shenmue was on the Dreamcast. You've got Samba de Amigo, which is an amazing rhythm game on there. Things like that, and I've always been curious because it has like this verge between PS1, PS2 graphics. Like it's an era that I can appreciate and feel at home in. So it's definitely one that I would like to explore at some point. And I'm kind of interested as to why Nintendo haven't gone after getting Dreamcast games on their virtual console, because I think it would be a smart thing to do. And I would really like to try them at some point. So Dreamcast is the console that I would be most fascinated by going back to. So,
and I think it'll be interesting going forwards, like how companies respect and treat sort of these games that are part of gaming history, and so much gaming history has happened in the last 20-30 years that it's incredibly important that it's preserved and kept, because the second that a game is lost and say the contacts get rusty and the cartridges become unplayable, for example, it's quite easy to just let whole games just vanish into history without ever being playable again. And it's quite important.
I mean, the video game industry has a huge problem with preservation, and the issue is like companies these days don't want things like emulation and piracy happening, but quite frankly that's the only way that we're going to preserve these games, because otherwise they're just going to disappear into the ether. And it'll you look at something like Disney Infinity, which apparently the PC version of that is just going to go defunct and you'll never even be able to load it up again. Like, that is absurd. Like, how can we allow this to happen? And by having people in the scene of the black market of like emulators and ROMs, people are like, oh, it's a bad thing, but for fuck's sake, like, you need these people around doing the good work, because otherwise no one else is going to do it.
And it says a lot that going way back to the Wii reveal, was it 2005, 2006?
Yeah, 2005, I guess, the reveal.
Sort of one of the sort of most important points of that reveal, and one of the points where the audience were just the most excited was, oh yeah, we've got this thing called Virtual Console. You'll be able to get games from the N64, the Super Nintendo, and the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I remember the crowd just going wild, and it's just kind of this moment of thinking, oh my god, I have a console that's sort of 4 consoles in one. That's incredible, and it's just important that that trend is continued.
Yeah, it was also a very big deal for people who lived in Europe, because you had games like Chrono Trigger and Earthbound and like all these RPGs that never got released here, and for the first time people managed to play them. So I do think, like, despite the fact that obviously we disparage the Virtual Console all the time and how it's terrible and how they never release things at the right timing and it's always just this slow drip feed, I'm glad it still exists.
Definitely.
Because otherwise we wouldn't have anything, and it would be better to have stuff than not. So there you go. Bally, I guess he's much more talking about like collecting systems themselves, but I think we've made it clear that we're definitely much more in the realm of like, let's just download these things and make it convenient for us to play. So.
Yeah, definitely, and that's, like you said earlier, it's to do with TV screens, it's to do with just space that all this kit takes up.
Totally, yeah, space is a big deal.
And also, like you said, save states, absolutely love them.
Yeah,
you gotta have them save states when you're playing these RPGs.
I don't know. I beat Chrono Trigger without save states, so I'll tell
all right, show off.
It's doable, Bally. It's doable.
But that's all we've got time for this week. For emails, I'll tell you that email address again. It is thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That's thisnintendolife@gmail.com.
We need some more, by the way. You should probably send in some emails. I think we're getting to a point where there's going to be a lot of Nintendo news, but in this drought period, in this time of need, we need you to send us some questions, some emails. So if you haven't before, do it for the first time. Send us a question. If it's good, we'll pick it. We'll read it on the show. So do that. And yeah, I guess we're going to move on to the next section where we shall discuss, Bally, a thing. So let's talk about it then.
See you after the break.
Alright everyone, welcome back to the third and final segment of the show. Bally, we're going to talk about the new Nintendo 3DS Direct that happened literally today when we're recording this. So we've got some hot takes to give, and some announcements were made. And we're just going to discuss it. We're going to pick things out and probably just focus on the things that are more relevant. Lots of amiibo shit happening, Bally, which I don't know that either of us are a fan of. So, yeah, let's get into it. Bally, how about we grab bag this? Why don't you pick out a thing and we'll go back and forth.
Why don't we go for the first sort of shocking surprise that I was like, wow, that's a thing. Super Mario Maker for the Nintendo 3DS.
Yes.
It's weird. It starts playing and sort of the trailer and footage starts showing up, and I'm starting to think, right, it just looks like the Wii U version. What have they changed? Where's Mario Land 2? Where's Mario Land 1? I want to see different tile
we want these
sets.
handheld representations going on.
And then it's quite clear that, okay, there's no new tile sets. So I'm just like, right, fine. Right, I'll give you a pass on that one, Nintendo. Fair enough. Like, the Wii U version was a really successful product. Great game. Why not just keep the same format and bring it to 3DS? But then you find out later on when they're describing the game that you can't upload your levels that you create to the servers online. You can only do it locally, we think.
Yeah, so they said that you can share them via Streetpass, which I think is a cool idea. Obviously, like, if you're doing a 3DS version of Mario Maker, that's smart to have your levels go to different people who you're walking past in the street and everything. But not being able to upload them just seems like such a weird thing to do. And generally, this version seemed extremely gimped. Like, there is no way to search for specific levels. So say I make a level on Wii U and want you, for example, to play it on 3DS, there's really no way for you to do that unless I see you in person. Like, it is kind of absurd that they have taken out, like, major features. It really doesn't feel like a fully realized version of this game. It kind of feels, as you said on Twitter, a bit of a cash grab, to be honest, where they're like, hey, we know there are lots of people who own 3DSs and are interested in this Mario Maker concept, and obviously the general public, people who are just going in there and playing random levels and things like that, aren't going to care too much about the lack of these features. But if they were to make something that was, you know, viable for people who already own the Wii U version, I don't know that this gets many people on board, to be honest. Like, It's cool to have a portable version of it, but when it's lacking so many of the key features that make Mario Maker what it is, it just doesn't seem like a smart thing for me to buy or for you to buy at all.
I think Jeff Gerstmann did a tweet that was quite accurate. You know, he often does sort of a really succinct tweet.
He's very
pithy.
pithy.
Sort of sums up a situation quite well. Like he did a great one for the PlayStation 4 PlayStation Network announcement when the price went up and things like that. He's very good at like just putting his finger on the pulse and finding out what things are. And he's basically said, he said he could sort of see how someone who's sort of obsessed by Mario Maker and wants a bit of that experience on the go, this is really good for. But ultimately, if this is your only Mario Maker, so if you only own a 3DS and this is the only game you buy, it's not really offering the same product at all as the Wii U version, and that makes it just fall completely flat.
Yeah. So it's come kind of calling into question the idea of, hey, what are they going to do about NX and maybe having a Mario Maker version on there? And people have been going back and forth about whether this means that there's going to be one or there's not going to be one. And I tend to feel that it means that NX will have one. And the reason I think that is, as they are kind of trying to move all their platforms together and put everything on every place possible, it seems like they are trying to get, before NX is announced, as many people as possible to be on board with like the idea of having the same game across their different areas, and therefore introducing them to the notion that when NX comes around, people will be like, okay, I'm going to buy this game, but hey, I don't actually need to buy it twice this time. I have it on both systems. How do you feel about this, Bally? Do you think it indicates anything about Mario Maker potentially being on NX?
I don't know. I think that Mario Maker has to step it up a gear when it comes to NX. I don't think they can get away with just putting out the same product. And maybe that does mean adding a couple of new tile sets, or who knows, but there has to be something different. So I think if Mario Maker comes to NX in the same form it was on Wii U, I don't think I would pick it up, to be honest. I mean, I did like the game. I do like the game a lot, but I need something new, and like this game that they've just announced in the 3DS version certainly doesn't do that for me. It's nothing.
It does less.
New. It does less. It does less. The one upside, I think, which is quite cool, is that it's coming out really soon. It's coming out like start of December, I believe, in Europe at least.
Yeah.
And that's quite a smart, quick turnaround. Impressive stuff, considering that this holiday season on Nintendo's end is pretty bare. So throughout this direct, there was quite a lot of stuff announced for coming this year, which is pretty impressive considering how sparse it felt earlier this year. So they've sort of pulled a rabbit out of the bag a little bit on this one, and I guess 3DS Mario Maker is part of that. Like we've said, it's not the Mario Maker we'd want to see, but it's something.
They've pulled a rabbit out of the bag, but it's a very skinny rabbit. In the sense that, like, yeah, okay, they have games for the holiday now, but they're ports of games from systems you already have, for the hardcore people, of course. Like, the stuff that they were announcing here really felt like, hey, all our money and effort and time is going towards NX right now. Here are some ports, and here are some B-tier games, and here are some things. There's quite a lot of them, but like nothing stands out as being that important to me.
Well, while we're talking about ports, shall we just
Sure.
go straight for Woolly World?
Yeah, let's go straight for that.
I think that when you're in a situation like Nintendo, where there are so many more 3DSs out there than Wii U's, I think it is a smart move considering your assets when you do these ports. Like, I think, especially at the end of a life cycle, Yoshi's Woolly World, I mean, I didn't like it much, but I think people generally liked it quite a bit. And it's got a great art design, very cutesy, very charming. And I think that it is a game that could work on 3DS. So I think it's cool that they've just sort of had the idea. Actually, here's a cool game that we made that only a small number of people are going to experience. But we know that there's a lot of people who are on this other system who will probably enjoy that experience as well. So let's just bring it to there. And you got to say that this port seems a lot more thorough, a lot better. It's a better representation of the original game than the Mario Maker port suggests. This suggests that they're keeping the same game with added Poochie levels. Yay.
Right, more stuff being thrown
exactly
in.
More stuff. Obviously the Poochie amiibo, great.
Sure.
It just seems like I'm obviously not a Woolly World biggest fan, but I think this is a cool idea and a more positive one than Mario.
I think it's a good portable game as well. Like,
Yeah.
I think 2D platformers work great on 3DS regardless of what they're going for, and it's definitely smart. It's one of those things which you think about and you're like, well, yeah, this really makes a lot of sense because Wii U has been doing very poorly, and software sales for a lot of these big titles like Woolly World have probably been pretty soft. So it makes sense that they can take stuff that can work on 3DS power-wise, because it's not like the biggest graphical powerhouse. It looks really nice, but it's definitely transferable to a smaller screen.
Do we know when it comes out?
I think it's this holiday as well. I think a lot of this stuff was... Actually, no, I think it might be 2017, now that I think about it. I think it was confirmed as like a later release, like February or something, which I was a little confused by, because I'm like, wait a second, February's getting very close to when NX is supposed to come out, isn't it? There's quite a lot more 2017 3DS announcements than I was really expecting in this direct.
Yeah,
it seems like Nintendo's tradition of leaving systems to die in their last years is like the complete reverse on 3DS, because it just seems to be booming with software. Not the greatest of software, but they're still putting out a lot of stuff.
It's definitely just changed my opinion massively on the life cycle of the 3DS. Like, this thing is guaranteed now to at least run into the first little while of the NX, and that is not what I would have said a year ago. I think it's quite impressive and interesting that they want to go for having the 3DS and NX alongside each other for at least a short period, if not perhaps longer. Who knows? But there's lots of more games that we're going to talk about that also are sort of prolonging the life of 3DS by going back to older games, changing them up, DLC, added amiibo content, stuff like that we maybe mentioned.
I mean, Emily Rogers, who has been reporting on a lot of NX stuff, was saying that Nintendo apparently plans to support the 3DS up through 2018, which is... a really long lifespan. I mean, you think 3DS came out in 2011, right? So that's 7 years of support, which, I mean, the 360 PS3 generation was around that length, and people were saying that was getting long in the tooth. 3DS is very outdated hardware at this point, but there is a big install base out there, and I think Nintendo are smart to still support that system because it's their big moneymaker right now. It still has like a lot of people who own the hardware, and therefore there are a lot of opportunities for software to do well. What it does make me think, and this was another Emily Rogers thing that she tweeted out earlier on today, is that maybe when we look back on the Wii U in posterity, it may start to seem like less of a unique system and less of a system with its own identity when you're considering a lot of these games are being moved to 3DS, and the NX supposedly is going to have ports of things like maybe Splatoon, Mario Maker, and Smash Brothers. Like, the identity of the Wii U and it being a system that you go back to for specific games is going to shrink and shrink if we keep getting like these ports going to different places.
Yeah, I mean, even as it was, so many of my gaming experiences on Wii U are, indie games that are obviously on other systems. I spent an awful lot of time on virtual console games. So my actual time I spend on my Wii U playing Wii U unique games is probably almost a third of the time I spend on Wii U. So like so I've always seen it as this box that brings everything together. And that's how sort of I'll certainly remember it. But I agree that maybe some of its unique identity and its unique IPs are being shipped out a bit. But I can totally see why Nintendo are doing it. And I actually think it's quite nice to see Nintendo go for a cash grab every now and then, because so often fans suggest, and the backseat CEOing, saying, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. And these are sort of things that definitely the armchair CEOs have suggested, where they do port different IPs to different systems. So I think it's quite positive.
And 3DS has now got quite an eclectic kind of back catalogue of remakes, with like N64 ports with Ocarina and Star Fox, and obviously you have Donkey Kong 3D Returns, which is a Wii game, being ported there, and now we have Wii U games being ported there. So like somehow this little handheld is kind of being this catalogue for a lot of Nintendo home consoles, surprisingly enough. So
we've had Super Mario Maker, we've talked about Yoshi's Woolly World, both coming 3DS. Pick a third announcement, MBZ. What do you want to mention
with
next?
your choice of verbiage there with picking, I think it's probably appropriate to go for Pikmin.
Oh boy.
Which is a side-scrolling 2D Pikmin game that I've learned from the internet and from various people is not being made by the best developer, Bally, unfortunately, and it's kind of killed my buzz on this game, because it did look kind of cool, kind of generic in my opinion, and I didn't really like the art style. I think it looked kind of ugly. But this game is actually being developed by Artoon, who made Yoshi's Island DS and Yoshi's New Island, I believe. Both games that underwhelmed people and people thought were not very good. And putting them in charge of another game with the beloved Nintendo franchise, probably not spelling the best of things, unfortunately.
I mean, probably the master, not maybe the master, but a person I really admire and listen to a lot when it comes to 2D platformers is Guillaume Viette on RFN. He knows his Nintendo 2D platformers, and I saw you retweet MBZ, a tweet from him saying that this developer just makes terrible 2D platformers, and that is I think that is a real shame, because in my mind that almost makes this game go from a day one purchase to a let's sit back and see reviews and then potentially purchase, for me at least. It is disappointing that they have gone with someone like that, because I never really want to judge a 3DS game in terms of visuals from directs or visuals. I'm definitely
true. You're very, very true. I mean, the way that we talked about Codename Steam was obviously backfiring.
And people are saying, and even a game like Federation Force, I've not really played it. I've only played the demo, but that's another game where people are saying it looks really great when you actually have it in front of you.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
But on a stream or watching a video on YouTube or something, it doesn't pull weight. So I'm intrigued by this game. I really like that Pikmin gets a spin-off. Like it feels like all the franchises that Nintendo like to do spin-offs for are a big franchise. I mean, obviously it was a bit weird with Federation Force. They did a spin-off without having a main game in such a long time. That's a bit that's a cheeky move. But
it is, yeah.
Pikmin 3 wasn't out a massively long time ago. We know that Pikmin 4 is coming sometime soon. We don't really know when, but it's nice that Pikmin does get a spin-off, and I think it looked interesting, and I'm intrigued. I love Pikmin, and I want to see where this goes.
Sure, yeah. I mean, again, I'm kind of gonna wait and see how people talk about it, but there were neat ideas in there. Transferring like the Pikmin philosophy to a 2D space. Apparently you can't jump in the game, and you have to get around situations through puzzling with Pikmin.
It looks like a puzzle platformer.
Yeah, totally.
And that's cool. Like,
and I'm sure it'll be a cheapish price. Not like it's not going to be a box boy kind of thing, but I think it will definitely be reasonable.
I think what I have to say, I think even though it might be lower than your standard AAA 3DS game, I think that it'll be a shorter experience for sure, but I think the price will still feel unfair. It just feels like one of those things. You know what I mean? Like
it's a core Nintendo IP being used as an eShop game, so
yeah, it might be like a 3-hour game, but they sell it for 20-25 quid, and it'll just be like, well, that was ridiculous. Thanks very much.
Sure, yeah, totally.
But who knows? So I think that's the first quarter of 2017 or around then. So yeah, I thought that was a really cool, unexpected thing. Everyone loves Pikmin. It's cool.
Okay. So it's your turn, Bally. What do you want to pick out next?
I want to get into a bit of, Darwinism,
Okay, sure.
I'm intrigued by Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Well, I mean, you've decided you're going to play one of those games.
I'm going to pick up one of them. I'm skipping X and Y, I think, and I'm just going to dive straight in for Sun or Moon. I played Pokemon Red earlier this year, obviously. Loved it. I really love the idea of a lowland Pokemon. Obviously, this was known before this Direct, but I'd seen some of the shots of them online, especially the stuff like the Ice Vulpix and the Ice Ninetales. I think
those designs look so good.
And it's just really cool to take the original 150, which people just love, and obviously the Rise of Pokemon Go, the original 150 just have Gen 1 have such an aura about them. They're just really impressive designs, and I love the fact that they've taken them and done funny stuff with them, like obviously the Executor with a massive long neck and become part dragon type. I'm loving that, and I just thought this Direct didn't really tell you much more about the game, but I thought it was interesting how they justified how Alolan is tropical and the Pokemon on these islands evolved differently. So they used the example of Rattata. They said that this other Pokemon kept eating the regular Rattata. So the Rattata that evolved with this sort of on hind legs and with the different colors were more camouflaged and escaped to their predator. And that's why the Alolan Rattata looked different. And I was like, that's great. Bring evolution to the Pokemon universe.
I mean, they have evolution in a different sense.
I know. God, way to mess around with the word evolution.
Right, exactly.
I just thought it's a cool, fresh idea, a good way of including the original 150, and yeah, I'm jazzed for a bit more Pokemon.
Okay, I'm going to pick out Tank Troopers next, which was a really weird new 3DS eShop game that was announced, and I don't think anyone knows who's developing it yet. So that's the thing I'm really curious about, because it has an almost Advance Wars feel to it in its look, but it's definitely like an action game. It's definitely, hey, multiplayer tank shooting at people. The one thing that I'm going to say is a consistent bother to me, and it happens again and again with all this multiplayer 3DS software, local only. What the flying fuck are you doing, Nintendo? How they can't have online for so many of these games just continues to blow my mind and continues to make me not want to buy these games. Despite the fact that Tank Troopers looks neat and is something I'd be interested in.
It's really weird, especially because I thought this was almost like a continuation of a game like Sub Wars. Where
right, exactly.
They went on a huge online rampage and they said, like, this is free download, try it now, you can play online for free, and everyone's like, well, great. And I tried it, I thought it was a cool game. I didn't spend any money on it, but I can imagine a lot of other people doing that, and it's really funny to take a step backwards like this.
What did you think of it, Bally? Do you like the aesthetic? Did it give you any Advance Wars vibes?
Advance Wars, yeah, but sort of Battalion Wars look.
Sure,
it reminded me a
lot
of Sub Wars. It reminded me of as sort of like a slow shooter, and it was cool with like the ideas of you have like a paint gun that puts off the visor of your opponents and stuff like that.
Sure,
cool.
Yeah.
Like add a little sort of Mario Kart tint to a tank.
Basically,
shooter.
yeah.
It's interesting enough. I don't think I'm going to pick it up unless it does something amazing review-wise. I think that the fact that it's not got online immediately just sort of shoots it straight at a very young market who owns 3DS to play with their mates, basically, and not connect online, obviously. And that's a real shame, because it might have been a cool thing.
Yeah, totally. Okay, what do you want to pick out next, Bally?
Let's talk a bit about Zelda 30th anniversary. So they sort of had a couple of announcements, very small ones. Well, I'd call them small.
Sure.
Skyward Sword came to Wii Virtual Console on the day. I love it when Nintendo do this. They do directs and then they say, here's a thing, and you can do it today. Obviously, it's not a new game, but it is a great game. Skyward Sword is a great game. That's cool that it just sort of comes to the Wii U eShop on the day after the direct. They announced that in conjunction with 4 amiibos for the Zelda 30th anniversary, which is obviously this year. That's cool. I thought they were some of the best Zelda amiibos yet.
They look very well done.
You've got Toon Link, Toon Zelda, like a classic Ocarina looking sort of Link, and who's the 4th one? Obviously, the 8-bit Link, which I thought was also very cool. I'm not into amiibos. I've got a couple. I've sort of promised myself I'm not going to buy any more. But
it's Toon Link, though, Bally.
I mean, why would
He's your mascot. Toon Link He's your Twitter avatar. He's your avatar everywhere.
I've got him already. So
I know.
It's cool.
I do think this Toon Link looks better than the Smash Brothers one.
Definitely, it's the pose that's on the HD remake and stuff like that. And
we're holding the Wind Waker itself, which is great.
Holding the Wind Waker, which obviously is important. Cool stuff. I'm tired of Amiibo, but it's obviously making money for them. I know that plenty of Nintendo fans out there love Amiibo, including a lot of people who listen to this show. So I'm not gonna rain on their parade yet again. But there you go.
I've got a question for you, Bally.
Hit me.
Does this put a bullet in the potential of a Skyward Sword HD remake?
No, because wasn't there some other game that came to Virtual Console and then they remade it anyway? I can't even think what it was.
I mean, Xenoblade came out on 3DS and then was still on Virtual Console?
Exactly. Same with Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask was 3D. So, no. I think there are a lot more questions of how to implement an HD Skyward Sword, obviously with the Wiimote Motion Plus.
Well, hey, I mean, if these NX rumors are bearing out to be true, then we may have motion in those detachable controllers on NX. So
I just think, unfortunately, as much as I know you love Skyward Sword, it is not. It came out when 2010.
It was 2011.
2011. So it's 5 years. Like it's had a lot of time to settle in. History has taken its toll. I would say a bit on that game, and I feel like there are other games, including Wind Waker, that have aged better and are more susceptible to a remake. Obviously, Wind Waker's already been remade. I think they will probably remake Skyward Sword at some point, but I just think the demand for it will be lower than we might think.
Okay.
But who knows?
Sure. So I think the next thing to talk about is Streetpass, because boy oh boy are they just piling on more Streetpass updates for people who just go to every games convention in the world and need more stuff to do. So man, a lot of stuff pissed me off about this, to be frank. So they've added.
I thought it was only one thing.
It was only one thing, really, but they've added 5 new Streetpass games. A bonus thing is, hey, we get one of them for free. So
I think you could pick between the stock market one and the sort of
the train,
Skeletrix. I can't even say
Skeletrix.
Skeletrix style. I think that's a very British brand, actually.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think they changed the name to SCX actually. So SCX style. Point and accelerate sort of car mini game.
Are you decided which one you're going to grab?
Oh, the car one for sure. Are you kidding me? I can't be bothered with stock.
Nah, son, I'm going to be trading all day.
Are you serious?
I don't know. I'm going to have a look and decide.
I want to give it a go. But obviously,
I've been toying with getting into the stock market, Bally. So got to get some practice.
I didn't know. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Well. I think that's the thing is that the Street Pass, other than obviously games conventions, we've obviously just been at Gamescom where it was rife with Street Pass, but it does feel like you walk around in cities, especially like in Europe, and it just feels like it's not there as much as it was. And I guess these are attempts to make it there a bit more, but it's also, like you said, it's just catering to that market who do still use Street Pass a ton, who still go to tons of game conventions each year and constantly playing with that. So it's cool. I'm fascinated to see what they do about the Street Pass concept for NX. I don't think they'll keep it on in its current form, but I can definitely see them launching it in some new way. It'll be really interesting to see.
Inevitably, I think there'll be a version of this style of thing in NX.
Definitely.
Makes sense, because it's been so successful for them.
So what's your big gripe with it at the moment?
Well, before we get to my big gripe, they've also actually updated the plaza itself to make it more quick to get in and get out and to get Miis into your place and skip dialogue and things like that. So they've added a swift play plaza, which is a thing
designed for a games convention.
Basically, yeah, which is smart. But they've locked a feature, Bally, behind a premium account. If you have Streetpass Mii Plaza Premium, you can now store up to 100 Mii characters instead of 10. So they're making a convenience that everyone should have behind a fucking paywall. For what reason? I don't know, because they're assholes. This really pissed me off, to be honest. Like, why you would not make it so that everyone has access to this feature that makes Streetpass more easy to use and would make people want to use it more, just goes beyond me, to be honest. It is just really fucking stupid, and I am annoyed.
I'll play devil's advocate. I don't say I agree with what I'm about to say, but if you're someone who goes to lots of gaming conventions, is on Streetpass loads, and who would be in a situation where you could potentially have 100 people lined up and queuing in your plaza, is the likelihood not that you're already a premium member of Streetpass?
Probably, but that doesn't excuse it, as far as I'm concerned.
I know, because if you're someone like us, who's just been to their first proper games convention,
yeah,
and you've not paid for premium...
I could have finished everything if I'd had this feature, but no, they're just going to
maybe
fucking
Nintendo
lock
don't
it.
want you to finish everything, NBZ. They want to ease it out a bit more. You know?
Great.
I know it's annoying and horrible, and it's frustrating when you are in a situation where you're getting more than 10 at a time. It's annoying. So I can... Hey, it's more cash grabbing.
It is,
Who can blame them?
All right, Bal, it's your turn.
I like me some Mario sports games every now and then.
You do, yeah.
I've not really played one in quite a while now. I think
it's one of those things that back in the N64 GBA Game Boy era, you were like real hot on Mario sports. You owned all of them. You loved them all. You just went so deep in those.
I really loved the golf, the tennis, Strikers Charged. Loved them, like really loved them. And now they've put lots of them together. Obviously there was a Mario sports game that put lots of sports together on 3DS. No, DS, sorry.
It was on DS,
I think it was basketball, ice hockey, and volleyball.
Yeah, some weird, like, not very mainstream sports.
Exactly.
Basically.
Like, if you want to make a hot sports title, you got to get the hot sports in there. And I don't rate ice hockey, basketball, and what did we just say?
Volleyball
as those sports. I think baseball, that's a game on GameCube that I never played that I would have loved to have tried. So I'm pretty excited for that.
Sluggers, right?
Sluggers.
Did Sluggers even come out in Europe? I have a feeling it didn't because of its American basis.
I want to say no, and who can blame them? I don't know how. I don't think baseball games would sell well in Europe.
No, totally not.
So I think this one's got football, tennis, baseball,
golf,
and horse riding.
Horse racing.
Horse racing.
Everyone's favourite Wario rides the horse in Mario Olympics 2016.
And they really tried to emphasize in this trailer that these weren't, half-done sports, that they did actually have some depth. And to some degree, I believe them. Like, it felt like there was enough there where to pick up this game and play them all together would be a lot of fun. I'm intrigued to see if it has online. I don't know if they said that or
Bali,
not.
I'm reading the text from Nintendo right now, and it says plus local and online multiplayer.
Are you serious?
It's breaking the tradition. They're actually online in this game.
See, I think I've had a really suitable break from Mario sports games. I'm intrigued to see how this does. I think this is coming out first half of 2017 as well, actually.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. So I'm intrigued to see how this does. I'd like to pick it up potentially, and play me some online Mario sports because I need some of that back in my life.
There's a golf game on 3DS. There's a tennis game, and they've been rated pretty well, and people have talked good things about them. But now everything just in one. Like, that sounds like a smart move.
Yeah.
If they all have the depth of those individual games as well, like, that's really great.
And that's a big criticism of, especially, for example, the Wii U Mario Tennis, where they basically said the mechanics are great and all, but like, there's just hardly any modes. There's no content here. It feels like a 20 quid game rather than a 40 quid game. And I mean, hey, if they have sort of that many modes per sport in this game, fine, so be it. Even if it is under developed a tiny bit, fine. It doesn't matter because there's 5 sports. Like, big deal. Let's just, if this costs like 40 quid or whatever, fine. I think that'd be it's a cool bundle. It's an exciting thing to do for the Mario Sports franchise.
Totally. So I am going to go. We're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel here, Bally, but I'm going to pick out Picross 3D Round 2, which everyone I've ever heard talk about Picross 3D says it's the second coming of Jesus Christ. Because,
I know, it's really weird, isn't it? Neither of us have tried it, but everyone you see on Twitter and a lot of podcasters we listen to are just absolutely love it.
They're all obsessed with Picross 3D. Like, it's just crazy. And the original, actually, they also announced the original DS game is going to be on the eShop. It's right now available on Wii U. So I could download that maybe. I don't know how much that is. Probably have a DS games are like 6-7 quid. But I think I'd be more interested in jumping into the new one because it seems like it looks really good. Like, very nice art going on in there. And it seems like it's well designed for the 3DS. And I think it's coming out December is what they said. So
did you ever try the 2D version at all?
I think I downloaded on an Ace card a while ago and gave it a bash.
So you have an idea of like what it is and how it works, and
yeah, I do kind of, but I didn't really learn a tutorial or anything, so I was kind of going in blind. So I don't think I really got much out of it. But Picross 3D is definitely something that, like, it's a franchise that is always on Nintendo systems, and I've never really got into. Like, I could potentially play that Zelda one because it's 1,000 coins, and I have like fucking coins coming out of my arsehole.
I'm gonna try that at some point.
Yeah. So perhaps. Yeah, Picross 3D. Are you interested in trying this as well, Bally? Then.
I'd like to download that Zelda one for free first and just see if I actually like the concept, even if it is 2D.
Sure.
And then maybe I think there's a demo on the eShop now or something they said.
Yeah, I think there's a demo now.
The 3D one. So they announced a number of demos actually throughout the Direct to say, oh, a demo now on the eShop, and that's a nice thing to do. Like it is cool to do that.
Yeah. Okay, Bally. Time to scrape the bottom of the barrel.
Not much left. I'm going to be very quick. Rhythm Paradise Megamix is coming October 21st.
Yep, it is.
And they announced a demo on the eShop right there and then, so I might try that. It'll probably be the same one I tried at Gamescom, but that'd be nice to try.
It's probably better to try it in your own home without the noise of the convention around you.
But for a rhythm game, exactly. So I'm going to pick that up hopefully in October. Excited for that. Anything else, MBZ, you want to mention?
Quest? They talked about Dragon Quest again. It's coming out 2 weeks' time. The next 2 weeks are really fucking good for me because Spirit of Justice, which is Ace Attorney 6, is coming out next week, and Dragon Quest 7 is the week after. So those are 2 really big, long games that I guess will keep me busy for a long, long time. So I'm excited for that. And also they said the Dragon Quest 8 is being delayed, so it's going to come in early 2017 to Europe, which is expected, I think. They said that I was coming at some point this year, and then inevitably, like, they want to put a bit more of a gap between these two because they are from the same series and they are kind of like one after the other. So it would make sense to space them, especially when they're like massively long RPGs. Yeah.
And I think everything else was stuff we don't care about. So I'm just going to list them, like Mario Party Star Rush. Who cares? Not interested. Amiibos with Animal Crossing New Leaf,
wow, they're going back to that. I think this was announced a while ago, though. I don't know, they're doing a bit more with it, but yeah.
Apparently, there's like a direct for Animal Crossing in November.
Right, that's a weird thing that kind of got brought up, and I'm like, if that's in November, like, does that mean we're going to have some NX announcement and then the Animal Crossing Direct is going to be talking about an Animal Crossing game on NX? I don't know. Like, it starts to bring into question what their roadmap is for NX and all that reveal.
And of course, who could forget the Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass DLC for Hyrule Warriors.
Hyrule Warriors just chugging the fuck along.
You can be Toon Link riding on a train through some enemies. Like, who wants to do that?
It feels
Not me,
like
anyway.
Hyrule Warriors, and I said this in my reaction video, has been in literally every Nintendo Direct since it came out, for some goddamn reason or another. Like, be it Amiibo, be it DLC, be it the 3DS update, it seems to be the thing that just clings on and never lets go. And it's great for people who love that game, but fuck me, it just doesn't want to disappear, does it?
No, but I'll tell you what, it's disappearing from our show, because
Sure.
I think we've covered everything, MBZ.
They did do a quick indie scroll with Pokemon Ed, our main man. And obviously we have a few Wii U titles coming out in the next few weeks. Axiom Verge is out today, and it's 10% off for next week. And I think all these games are going to be 10% off at their launch. So that's good to know. Azure Striker Gunvolt 2, we've got Severed, Jotun, and some other weird 3DS game called Noitu Love Devolution, which who the fuck knows what that is. But anyway, that is basically it, Bally. All in all, I would say it was a really meh direct from my perspective.
Really?
Announcements that I enjoyed were really... I can't think of one that I'm actually going to benefit from personally, so...
My two favorite announcements were Pikmin and Mario Sports. It was definitely disappointing to hear who Pikmin was being made by later, but who knows? They might hit it out of the park. Who knows? I think the Mario Sports is exciting. That's a cool idea to do with those franchises. And I was really expecting nothing from this direct. I thought they were just going to waffle on about Pokemon forever. They did for a bit, but not forever. And I thought they were just going to announce stuff that had already been announced, and there were actually some new things, which was cool.
I think it's more interesting from a coverage standpoint of like, hey, they're bringing these Wii U games to 3DS.
If I was a 3DS owner and didn't own a Wii U, I'd be pretty pumped about something like Woolly World and Mario Maker, even if Mario Maker is not quite its Wii U counterpart.
I think Woolly World's going to look fantastic in 3D as well.
Yeah, it'll be cool, and it's a cool game.
Yeah, Ever Oasis also they talked about, which sure that's coming out 2017, so not much new there either. But yeah, Bally, I think that's pretty much it. I think that's everything. How are you feeling about, the roadmap to NX now after this direct has been put out the way? Do you think that this was put here because they wanted to get some shit out the way before, they moved on to the real stuff?
I put the tweet out. I said, when everyone wants news on oranges, give them news on apples. And it was really weird when they announced this, that everyone's on the edge of their seats waiting for NX news to happen, and then we get a direct on the 3DS. A weird one, but I guess it's just a nice thing to put at the start of the month. Obviously Sony have their thing in a few days' time, and then who knows, Nintendo might do something at the end of the month. We'll see. But it might be a nice way of spreading it out, getting Nintendo news flowing through September, and then getting people hyped for the holidays, and then on to the new year when hopefully, obviously, NX is going to come.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, there were some reactions from Twitter. You put out a tweet, and some people responded, giving their thoughts on the direct. From @Dankaze Midori says, it was okay, some surprises, but not all of them exciting for me, which I would agree with. I think that makes sense. @CapsuleJ says, strange 3DS adaptations of Wii U games seems to be a recurring theme. Yeah, definitely. I wonder if they'll continue to do that. Do you think, Bally, that they'll go out and do more Wii U games?
Potentially. I wonder which other ones they would go for would be what I'd be curious. I could see something Captain Toad, maybe? Who knows?
Yeah, that's an interesting call, especially with 3D. That makes a lot of sense.
Something small. I just can't see Splatoon. I think it's just too much.
Yeah,
who
sure.
knows?
So Soothing Leaf says, as someone who's a little overwhelmed by normal Pikmin games, a 2D version might be more my speed. We'll probably give it a go. So that's cool. Hopefully that game does better than its pedigree suggests it might. So we'll see there. And then @Chaotix the Robot says, with 3DS versions of Woolly World / Mario Maker, backwards compatibility for NX is looking very unlikely, which I disagree with. But I I think that backwards compatibility is looking unlikely on NX for different reasons. I think that we'll definitely see versions of those games pop up as new versions. So, so just a few comments there. We had a few more, but I just wanted to get a kind of temperature of our listenership, of our following. It seems to be some people like stuff, some people didn't. So, Bally, that is going to be it for this episode. Before we go, we've got to do some plugs and shout out some things. So how about you tell people where they can find us on the internet?
If you want to be one of those people who tweets in onto the show next time, follow our Twitter account. It's at TNL Podcast. That's at TNL Podcast. If you want to hear my ramblings on Twitter, I'm at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91.
All right, well, you can find me at Lordnbz on Twitter. That's my name on the Miiverse as well. We now have a YouTube channel, which you can find by going to our Twitter account, really, at the moment, because we don't have a custom URL yet. Continues to really annoy me. But you can find the YouTube channel linked at the top of our Twitter, again, at TNL Podcast. Go there and find many videos that Bally and I have made regarding Nintendo and other things. You can also find us, of course, on the regular places, on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We are going to eventually be on Google Play when they come to our goddamn country. Yes, that generally covers things. I do want to give a quick shout out to Pocket Casts, which is an app that I use personally to download podcasts. It is having some issues with our podcast provider, Shout Engine, and as a result, episodes have been showing up, but like 4 days later than they get uploaded, and apparently it's an issue on Shout Engine's end. I think we're going to email them and try and figure that out. But if you're listening on Pocket Casts on Android, and for some reason are getting the episodes 4 days late, there's a reason for that. I apologize. It's kind of out of our hands. It's to do with our providers, and we'll hopefully fix that, but just so you know, that's what's going on. I think you can email us as well, Bally. Where can people throw that thing?
Please email us to ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That is ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. And one more point. We are currently playing, actually, MBZ, you've just finished. We are playing Earthbound for our third Backlog Club game. So this is obviously where we play a game at the same time, and we encourage any listeners to play the game along with us. Email in your thoughts on the game, tweet at us your thoughts on the game, #BacklogClub. We will be talking about that game in the coming shows. We're not putting a number on it just yet, but it will be soon.
Basically, when Bally finishes it is
the
number.
Precisely.
I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready.
That's scientific time.
Yeah. All right, well, make sure you write in about Earthbound, give us some emails to that email address, and keep playing with us.
Subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah, subscribe on YouTube. So thanks, Bally, for joining me for this episode. We'll be back next time when hopefully something about NX will have been announced. I think the next 2 weeks is going to be a critical time, so we shall see. But that is going to be the episode, and thank you, everyone, and hope you keep enjoying the show and enjoy us as we move forward with these new endeavors with YouTube and everything, and appreciate all your support. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Goodbye, everyone. The musical interludes used on today's show were the main theme from Rhythm Thief, copyright Sega 2012, and the intro theme to Shank, copyright Clay Entertainment 2010.
We're going to discuss a thing.
I forgot what we were going to do.
Because I was all ready to do like an ambiguous outro, and then you started the outro. I'm like, he's going to fuck this up.
Yeah,
he's going to fuck this up. He's going to fuck this. I don't know. You can maybe edit around it.
It doesn't matter. It's fine.